Hello, everybody. My name is Yolanda Valerie. I am currently the head of digital engagement in a UK company called Ocado Group that I will talk to you about in a moment. But here we are today to talk about something that excites me very much because it's a framework that we created to guide every piece of content that we do with the purpose of mainly raising the brand awareness of the company, and there is a lot of thought leadership into it. There's a lot of considering what the audience is gonna find valuable, etc., etc. And we call that framework PAVE. So we use it to try and pave our way towards doing content that will be successful. And I'll tell you more about it in a moment. So hang on, I'm trying to move this presentation now, if I may. There you go. A little bit about me. So I am a story of transformation, I would say that. The one on the left is me many years ago as a reporter back in Venezuela, my home country, where I work in a number of different outlets, mainly radio, newspapers, but also I did a little bit of television. And typical gear, long time ago, you'll have a radio attached to your waist and then a notepad in your hand, and then the rest is history. And then you can see me on the right hand side, which is a picture they took me at Ocado not so long ago. Same me, only now sitting behind a desk, which is less exciting and more exciting in different ways. But I'm still trying to I'm still a hat. I'm that person on the left hand side, who has a passion for stories, storytelling, finding them, articulating them, and communicating them in the best possible way. A bit about Ocado Group. I really don't know how much you know about it, but I just thought I'll introduce one slide, and you probably can see by now that you're stuck with Charlie Chaplin all the way. And this is the best representation that I could find to try and explain what Ocado does. It's a pure play online supermarket here in the UK that delivers groceries all over the country. But since for the past 2 years, it's moved from being just that into actually selling that technology, the end-to-end technology, because the online proposition is highly automated. So you had bots that pick up the groceries for you and will put them in a van for you. And then there will be all sorts of system and software telling the drivers what's the best way to get to the various points that they need to hit, etc., etc. So it's a highly automated online supermarket. And you can appreciate now the difference between covering political stories back in Venezuela and doing content marketing for an online supermarket / technology company. It's been quite a challenge, and it's been quite the learning curve. However, the reason why I'm here telling you this story is because I think there are a lot of valuable lessons you can get from journalism and that you can apply in corporations when you're trying to articulate your content marketing proposition. Hence why I think actually content marketing is the one thing that joins these two together. I call it journalism for non-newspapers, and you will see how those lessons can be very easily applied. PAVE then. I've said this is the framework that we utilize to set us up for success when we are undertaking content marketing pieces for Ocado, and it stands for purpose, audience, value, and execution. Going on to purpose. Purpose basically is your classic what's the take that the company wants to put out there. One of the things that I've learned is the massive differences, at least in my humble experience, between doing PR work and doing content marketing. PR work is more about what the company actually wants to say, the story that they want to sell, without much filtering, as far as my experience goes. Whereas when you're talking about content marketing, you want to do the same thing, but in a way that the audience is actually going to be interested. However, having said that, it's not the case that when you're doing content marketing, you're just doing whatever stories you want. There's got to be a reason why you're doing them. and that is your purpose. So when the way this works in practice is every content creator that we have in our digital engagement team, on my team, will work out at the very start of the process what this PAVE is for the piece before that piece gets even commissioned. The P for purpose is a very important part of this equation because obviously it needs to answer the question of what you're getting out of this piece as a company. And I don't mean, again, it's not the way that we try and articulate purpose goes beyond the idea of, I just want to say that I'm awesome. Okay, fine, you're awesome. Question is, who's going to care? So you need to be a little bit more sophisticated than that and try and figure out not only what the actual top message is, but what the underlying messages are. Is this piece going to project you as a technology company? Is this piece going to project you as a thought leader? Is this piece going to say that you are friendly, that you're approachable? Is this piece going to say that you are super specialized? What is this piece going to do for you? So that goes for both the actual message that you're trying to convey and the way in which you are trying to convey that. Audience. This is super important. I think this is probably the biggest lesson that you can bring from journalism to content marketing. Is that idea that the audience needs to be at the heart of what you're doing. It's not good, like I said, just to try and say to the world that you are an awesome company or that you are extra good at doing X, Y, and Z. The question is how you do it in a way that the audience is going to care. I very recently read an article saying that actually attention is the scarcest and the most valuable gift that anybody can give you. And in this world, which is completely crowded with messages, not only from companies which are out there, but same publishers, anybody these days is a publisher, be it a company, be it a newspaper, a radio station, a television station, or an influencer, if you push me. So in a crowded space like that, how are you going to stand out and have any sort of success if you're not thinking first and foremost of your audience? It's very good that you want to convey a message. The problem is who is going to listen. For that reason, two of the most important things that anybody needs to do when they face the prospect of going into a content marketing proposition for any company is to figure out A, who this audience is, and B, how you can help. And you would have heard about these concepts. They are not of my creation. Personas which apply to consumer products, but they apply to B2B propositions like the one that I'm working for. First and foremost, your task is to try and understand who this audience is and what they need. So part B of this audience bit is how can you help? In other words, what are their needs? How can anything that you can tell them be of any value to them? Add anything to their experience, make it worth their time. Make them stop while they're browsing on a Facebook feed, make them search and find an article that you put out there or a piece that you put out there, and they're going to want to read it. So a lot of work when it comes to audience. I've touched a little bit upon value. Value is the thing that is going to link your purpose to your audience. For this piece, I do make a shameless import from the BBC. The BBC is the British Broadcasting Corporation, as you probably know. I used to work there for years and years. And during the latter part of my tenure back at the BBC, the audiences team came up with a big piece of research looking at what audiences consider engaging, what is it that they go for. And they came up with something that they call the Wheel of Needs. The Wheel of Needs includes 6 different possible values that you can serve an audience by doing a piece. What it means is that you can do any piece on any subject, but depending on the way you treat it and in the way in which you structure it, you can use this piece to either update a person, to give perspective, to educate them, to keep them on trend, to entertain or divert them, or even to inspire them. It's a very simple framework, and there are different versions that have spun off this BBC Wheel of Needs and currently used by the likes of Vogue, where they specifically, for example, in the case of Vogue, they feel that an important value that they can add to their audience is one that connects them with their contribution to the world. It's kind of a responsibility sort of value. In our case, I kept it the original BBC framework because I think it does really encapsulate most of the values that you can add to your audience. But for example, if I were to tell you one case in which we've considered the possibility of creating a specific value that in our case we can give to a specific audience, when you're thinking of your partners, the people who buy your technology and utilize it all over the world, for that particular audience, an important value that we can serve them is reassurance. They are obviously investing a large amount of money on a technology that is proven here in the UK, but for them is new. So one thing that you can do for them with your pieces is just to reassure them that they've done the right thing and the technology that they've signed up to is actually worth it. But this is for me further down the line of development, because as far as I'm concerned at this moment in time, I can do the same sort of value within the label of Give Me Perspective. All in all, what again, when a producer or a content creator sits down and considers I'm going to do a piece on X, Y, and Z, then they'll figure out how they're going to treat this piece so that it's going to be of any value to the member of the audience. And then lastly, there is the issue of execution. What I found is when people approach you and ask, they are very concerned when they approach you with the goal of understanding how to achieve a certain goal. They are very much concerned with questions like, what platform do you use? What format do you use? What frequency? How, what sources do you put together into a story, etc., etc. This all is a video. Is that, video? Everybody swears by video these days. How do I do my video more effectively, etc., etc. What I found is that execution, yes, it's an important part of your plan. However, this comes last. First and foremost, you need to figure out everything that I mentioned before. What is it that you're trying to communicate? What is it that you're gonna get out of this piece when conveying it to the audience? Who is this person that you're trying to engage with? What is it that you can give them that they are going to consider valuable and hence they're gonna consume? Once you figure all of this, then you come to the question of, okay, how do I do it? Is it a video? Is it an online piece? Is it an Instagram story? Is it a post? Is it a number of tweets? Whatever it is that you are setting out to do, it needs to go, those other questions need to come first. Otherwise, you end up putting together a number of random things that necessarily are not going to give you a return. It will be an investment on your part, and necessarily you're not going to get a return out of them. So elements that you need to consider when you are planning your execution. Yeah, pretty much what's inside. So in this piece, what is it that you're going to be, let's imagine it's a video. What is it that you're going to be looking at? Is it a self-auto story? Somebody's going to tell you a story. Is it a number of interviews? Is it a number? Is it just, for example, an animation? What is it that is going to be inside the story? What is it going to look like? Then comes the style, and this will link up back to your purpose as well, because obviously depending on what styles, say for example the editing style that you use in that video, you're not going to convey a number of messages. If you make it very plain and very linear, you're going to be hard pushed to convey the idea that you are a heartbreaking top of the pop technology company. That style needs to match whatever the purpose is for your piece. And point C in here in my slide is the question of how is this story going to travel? And here we go into the distribution part of the equation, which is integral to everything that we said. So how is it going to travel? Is it a piece that you're going to optimize? Obviously, you need to optimize everything for search these days. But apart from that, how are you going to achieve that, right? How are you going to achieve that optimization? Secondly, what platforms are you going to use? Is this something that is going to travel via YouTube? Is it going to live just on your website? Is it something that is going to work on any other platform? Is that question of once you have that piece, how is it going to get to the other side? So it's all in the planning, as you can probably appreciate by now. What I'm trying to propose here is that you sit down before undertaking any pieces and you figure out all of these bits and pieces. Otherwise, like I said, and I do have sadly quite a few examples of that happening, in which you just go out there and because it's an emergency and you need to produce a series on X, Y, and Z, you go out there and you end up with a number of assets that necessarily don't do the job. And what we're trying to do within my current team is instill this discipline. If a story or a video or an online piece has not been paid, this is something that is just not going to happen. And we do all of the corrections and adjustments at the PAVE level, so that when this person goes out to do, their interviews or shooting a video or whatever the format is, they have a clear road ahead of them, which is being paved for them by pinpointing all of these bits and pieces. And I think that's probably everything that I had to tell you this morning. I hope it has been helpful and that it's something that you can use to aid you in your journey towards producing content marketing that gets results.